Inside Texas Politics with Jason Whiteley starts now.
Good Sunday morning, I'm Jason Whiteley. This program, like the political news happening right now, is going to look and feel a little different this morning, considering what happened to former President Donald Trump last night in Pennsylvania. Texas Agriculture Commissioner Sid Miller was on the campaign trail there with Trump in Butler County, Pennsylvania. And Miller told reporters that he was about 30 feet behind Donald Trump, standing in the front row of the bleachers when those shots were fired. This political violence really changes everything in a race and in a country not used to seeing such acts. But how does it affect things going forward? Let's start this morning with a campaign veteran, Matt Makoviak. He's Travis County's GOP chairman, but he also campaigned a lot with former President George W. Bush some 20 years ago.
Matt, thanks for the time here. First reaction to this, I'm sure, is kind of the same as everyone else.
You know, assassination attempts on political figures is something that happens either in history in America or in other countries. It's not something any of us are accustomed to seeing in our country. This is a scary moment. It's a sobering moment. It's a devastating, emotional moment. The country has to come together.
Matt, how do you think this changes things politically? We're hearing that the president was only grazed by gunfire, but how does this change things going forward? We're 4 months away from the election. The Republican National Convention starts on Monday in Milwaukee, which you'll be there, but things aren't going to be the same.
No, I think this probably will change things, and it's hard in the fog of this moment to know exactly where things are headed. We could have a period where violence is more common. We certainly could have a moment where political rallies are far more secure. I had the privilege of doing White House Advance in the 2005 calendar year for both former President Bush and former Vice President Cheney. I can tell you that when the Secret Service secures a location, as you know from having done presidential, vice presidential events over the years, they take that extremely seriously. They spend their entire careers ensuring a site is absolutely secure. So there are going to be a lot of questions for the Secret Service, for local law enforcement about how this happened. Was the shooter inside the perimeter? It appears he was on a rooftop. One of the eyewitnesses, a former ambassador to the United Nations, said he thought it was 100 to 120 feet from the stage. We're going to want to know whether he was inside the perimeter or not. If he was inside the perimeter, how did he get a weapon? If he was outside the perimeter, why was that location not secured? Because it was from an elevated position. So how does this change things? Look, President Trump was courageous and defiant in those seconds after what must be the scariest moment of his entire life. I think some of the images from him getting up and raising that fist are going to become iconic images in American political history. There will be a rallying effect in the country around Trump. There's no question about that. This could be the defining moment of the campaign. It also may be something 2 months from now that seems like it's 2 years ago. It's very hard to know in this moment how it will play out. But heading into the national convention, you can be sure of one thing. We're going to have 10 times or 100 times as much security in Milwaukee as we thought we needed 2 hours ago.
Do you think the president still accepts a nomination on Thursday night in Milwaukee?
I do, absent some much more serious health situation than what we appear to know at the moment. I do believe he would have to go on Thursday. I mean, part of showing strength and being defiant and showing the courage that we know he possesses is him being there. I do have to wonder whether this would make anyone that wants to accept the vice presidential nomination give that a second thought. They're now going to be a target in a way maybe they didn't think they would be before. This does start to raise questions, and I hate to say this because the bravery of the Secret Service was unquestioned and was on display for all of us. But how did this happen? It is a question we're going to have to understand better. There's going to have to be a full review within the Secret Service as to how this happened. I will say this. Security around a former president is not the same level as it is for a current president. The Secret Service detail is not as extensive. You don't have the same health resources. Apparently, they didn't have an ambulance on site. You can be sure they'd have an ambulance on site for a presidential event. It makes me wonder whether anyone who's a protectee needs to start getting the same level of security that a current president or vice president or first lady would get. These are the kind of questions I think we're going to have to get into in the days and weeks to come.
Donald Trump thrives on these big rallies. Do you think he has more of these in the future?
Yeah, I mean, he's going to get a lot of different advice about that. First of all, I think he's going to want to do more rallies, but I imagine both he and his wife, Melania, the former first lady, are going to have lots of questions about security. It could be that the crowds will be smaller. It could be he'll be behind bulletproof see-through glass, like what you see the Pope use. It could be, it'll be only in indoor locations where they can completely control a site. Secret Service is going to have to completely reassess what kinds of locations he can hold rallies at, because this cannot happen again. I mean, this bullet was a millimeter or a centimeter from killing him instantly. It apparently grazed his ear. You want to talk about an unthinkable moment. Imagine if Trump had been assassinated. Imagine the way the country would have reacted to that. Imagine what that would have meant. It's unthinkable, but it's not unimaginable given what we just witnessed.
And then the last thing I was going to ask you about, you and I have been in the political sphere for decades here. This is not something that happens in this country, at least in the past half century.
No, it's not. If you follow American politics, if you follow the American presidency, if you're interested in the Secret Service, if you've watched movies and read books, as I think a lot of Americans have, and certainly as I have, somebody who did White House Advance, these kind of moments felt like they were beyond our imagination. They were something that happened 50 or 60 years ago because maybe of a failure of imagination, or because security was not as advanced, or whatever the reason would be. Today, with the way security is around a former president of the United States or a current president of the United States, I'm as shocked this happened, that this could have happened, as any aspect of this. I truly thought we were at a point where this could never happen. And we're seeing now not only that it could happen, but that it did happen. And that means it very well could happen again.
Matt, thanks for the time.
Thank you. God bless.
As Matt and I mentioned there, Texas Republican delegates are heading to Milwaukee this weekend. The Republican National Convention starts there tomorrow. Then on Thursday, President Trump says he will accept his party's nomination for a third time. Our next guest right now, Alan West, the chairman of the Dallas County Republican Party, about what this week might look like.
The Republican National Convention starts on Monday in Milwaukee. How will this impact that?
Well, without a doubt, I mean, you're going to see a heightened security that is going to happen there, but not just for the venue itself, but you have to think about all of those people that are up there, the delegates from Dallas County, from Texas, from all over the country. I'm sure they're very much so concerned about their own safety as they're walking the streets or going out to certain restaurants and venues, what have you. So I think that people are going to have their heads on a swivel a little bit more.
I know we still haven't heard from former President Trump, and we understand he has been grazed by gunfire, and he's supposed to be safe and fine. But do you think that he accepts the nomination on Thursday night?
Without a doubt, he's going to accept the nomination. I mean, when you saw him stand up, this was almost a Teddy Roosevelt moment for him when he stood up there, he raised his fist and he said, "Fight on, continue to fight." You can see that from his lips. And that shows that he is going to stand even in the most trying of situations. I mean, I've been on battlefields, I've been shot at. I mean, it can change your constitution if you want to, understand what I'm saying there. But I think that this has increased this resolve. And I believe that the people that are out there supporting President Trump, and once again, let's not go back and get into a back and forth, but let's continue to talk about Mr. Trump and his issues and his record as president, and not, again, try to demonize people. Let the facts speak for themselves.
Mr. Chairman, good to see you. Thank you for your time.
Always a pleasure. Thank you, Jason.
When we come back here, President Biden survived another rocky week. Will next week take attention off of him? One of the state's top Democrats, Dallas County Judge Klay Jenkins, on what to watch for. And libertarians looking to capitalize on unmotivated voters in November. The party's vice presidential nominee talks directly to them when Inside Texas Politics returns. Welcome back to Inside Texas Politics. The Biden dilemma has Democrats in Congress disorganized and distracted. Some are talking publicly, some are not. This morning, we have one of the state's leading Democrats on, Dallas County Judge Klay Jenkins, who is not on the ballot in November and able to be more frank about the situation his party is facing. Judge, thanks for the time. Do you expect Joe Biden is going to be the Democratic nominee after the convention next month?
I think that's a decision that the president has to make with his advisors and with a circle of people. And I'm sure he's looking at those data points, every day.
Biden has said, listen, I'm going to run again. Stop all this talk, but he's still losing support.
Well, I'm not on the inside of that, but what I know is this. The president and his advisors need to look at all these data points, look at whatever it is they need to see and make a decision, as soon as they possibly can. And it's really his decision. The state primaries are over. He has the delegates, so he'll need to make his decision.
You're one of the leading Democrats in Texas. What would you tell the Biden campaign about the reality on the ground?
Well, what I would tell them is look at the data points. Don't just listen to your family and your closest advisors, but span that out to pollsters that don't work for the campaign. If there's a medical question there, span it out to doctors that are eminent in the field, and then make the best choice. And I'm confident that he will. This is a man who has spent his entire life serving our country. He saved democracy literally by beating Donald Trump 4 years ago. And I think he'll make the right decision. I don't know what that decision is, right? Because I don't have those data points.
Let's talk about high-speed rail for a moment here. You're the new chairman of the Regional Transportation Council. There's a revised plan for high-speed rail from Dallas to Fort Worth that does not cut right next to Reunion Tower, does not impact the Dallas skyline. Do you think these revised plans are going to be enough to get Dallas City Council on board?
I don't know about that. I hadn't talked to all of the council members. I think the Dallas City Hall position is we want to look at an economic development study that won't be ready until around February or March and see how this is going to affect us economically. At the same time, the federal requirements say that we've got to have some idea of a pathway so we can get environmental clearance before then or right around that time. So we got to do some work now. So what the RTC staff is asking is, can we begin to look at how we would go about a route that goes west of downtown and doesn't cut through downtown? And that's something they'll be asking us to vote on in August the 8th at our next meeting. Doesn't mean that will be the ultimate alignment, but they need to be working on something so that we don't kind of lose our place in the federal line.
Judge, thank you.
Thank you.
We've heard the chatter, probably you have as well, that some voters wish a third party would emerge by November to give them another choice. Well, this morning we're talking to one of the third parties. Mike Termott is the vice presidential candidate for the Libertarian Party. Mike, thanks for coming in the studio here. A lot of Americans are looking for an alternative this November. Why do you think the Libertarian Party hasn't scooped up as many people as it likely could? Here we are with 4 months left before election day.
I think a lot of people are used to voting for a Republican or a Democrat, and I think the debate showed last night that there's good reason to look for an alternative. I think a lot of people will be looking to the Libertarian Party as not just a third party, but the third party. And I think that they'll notice that our values align better with theirs than the Republicans and the Democrats do.
Every 4 years, we have to reintroduce libertarianism to the American electorate. They're the Democrats, Republicans, and a lot of independents in the middle.
Yep.
If you had to sum it up, I think you have a 10-point platform on your website. If you had to sum up top 3 things you would do if elected, what are they?
Well, it's initially to take power and to leave you the heck alone. That's the basic idea, is that we encourage Americans to live your life, control your own property, chart your destiny, and have a government that leaves you completely alone. So we believe in taking less of your money so that you can keep more money in your pocket. We have a plan to defeat inflation once and for all so that you can make ends meet. And by the way, we believe that we need a fundamentally different foreign policy because it doesn't align with Americans' values, and to be honest, it doesn't work.
Now, a lot of those sound like something Democrats or Republicans would say, but you guys are starkly different. Explain how then. I mean,
we are starkly different in the sense that Republicans and Democrats don't like the idea of going to war, but they keep propagating it over and over again. We believe that military interventionism is not a good foreign policy, that we can save a lot of money, we can save a lot of lives, and we can pursue a foreign policy that better aligns with our values by bringing troops home and ending foreign aid and stopping the projection of military hegemony just for the sake of controlling the rest of the world. It's not a policy that makes us safer, it's not a policy that makes us richer. And with regard to spending money, you're right, once in a while you'll hear a Republican say we spend too much money. Frankly, you don't even hear that from a Democrat very often these days. But we have a plan to actually cap federal spending and to bring that cap down over time. We believe that the federal government of the United States is in serious trouble financially. As a matter of fact, I don't believe it's likely that on a financial basis our government will survive past the middle of the century unless we have a serious course correction.
Libertarians, though, to really break out, need some big-time donors. Why is it so hard for libertarians to collect that cash?
I think it's because donors want to support a winner. And up until now, they have defined winning as going all the way and securing the White House. I believe that we have a decent shot at actually doing that in this cycle, because Chase Oliver is that popular and that skilled a politician who represents the values Americans are looking for.
But you need money to introduce you guys, though.
It's a chicken and egg, isn't it? You need to convince a number of donors and a lot of voters and a lot of your viewers who are watching us today that there are objectives, even short of securing the White House, that are worth standing behind. The idea of interrupting the usual process. If we can just gain enough support to force Republicans and Democrats to recognize that our values are important, right? Our policy positions are important and can't just be disregarded. That would be a huge win. And I think a lot of donors are recognizing that as an important objective worth supporting this time.
Mike, good luck to you.
Thank you very much. I appreciate you giving me the chance to tell us about the program.
The roundtable is ready to put the headlines in perspective when we come back here on Inside Texas Politics. Another storm, another power failure in Texas. Why can't the energy state deliver reliable electricity to all 30 million of us? CenterPoint Energy in Houston apparently did not pre-plan enough help after Hurricane Beryl last week in Houston. 2.7 million people left in the dark at the height of the storm, and questions are mounting. One reporter, though, has been really holding the powerful accountable over the last week. Jeremy Rogalski from KHOU putting the tough questions to CenterPoint, and he took some of our tough questions for the latest episode of Y'all-itics. Some of the things he discovered, mind-blowing. And will the state hold anyone accountable? Look for Y'all-itics right now, wherever you get your podcasts. All right, let's bring in the roundtable again to talk about the politics and the headlines happening, put them all in perspective. Ian Mitra is back with us from the Texas Tribune in Austin. Bud Kennedy is here from the Fort Worth Star-Telegram. Bernadine Steptoe, political producer at WFAA in Dallas. Will there be any accountability at all, Bud, do you think, with what happened in Houston, the state's largest city, another massive electric failure?
Jason, we see what happens to the Public Utility Commission in Austin. The businesses are favored, industry's favored. This is a for-profit energy company. You know, we're going to slap their hand. We're going to say, why can't you do better? But there's not really going to be any accounting. I think the people of Houston are the ones who are holding CenterPoint accountable.
Ian, what do you think?
Yes, the frustration is real in Houston too, and of course, you know, CenterPoint is getting criticized for not having an updated outage map for the communications gaps. You know, and you know, utilities are trying to defend. You know, trying to talk about the change in path of the storm and the adjustments that had to be made, and that the pace of workers is actually surpassing previous storms. That's what they'll focus on too. But you know, the things in terms of beyond just like the accountability of it too is if you're talking about things that are going to help us in the future, you know, stronger utility poles or burying power lines, those are things that are going to be, you know, felt by utility bill payers too. So that's going to be a continuing part of this conversation as well.
Yeah, and at the end of it, we're all going to pay for what happened in Houston. But you know, Bud brought up a good point, Bernadine. Almost all of Texas's major leaders, Ted Cruz, Greg Abbott, Dan Patrick, they're all from the Houston area at some point. Do you think that will help exact any change?
It didn't help to get the trucks and get the resources that they needed. And it raises another issue, it raises another question. Why Houston? You know, Houston is a huge city. They knew that the hurricane was coming. They knew that the storm was coming. But yet Houston was the last city, which is the largest city, that got help. So that raises a question as well. Why Houston? And then when we were talking to the to CenterPoint, the spokesperson said, well, we didn't know. Even Lieutenant Governor or acting governor, Patrick said that couldn't be possible. We knew.
We saw it coming for a week.
We knew.
And you know, Dan Patrick, after he finished his 30-minute tirade about President Biden, even Dan Patrick, who's very pro-business, said CenterPoint wasn't in position. They didn't have it planned. So even Dan Patrick very gently held CenterPoint responsible.
Well, but then they always talk about investigations. Well, how long is that going to take?
And whatever comes of those, Ian's.
And in the meantime, can we get Whataburger and Mattress Mac to get the polls back up?
How about Whataburger with the app there? I thought that was a meme when I first saw that. I was surprised that was real there. So shout out to Whataburger. Ian, let me ask you about a story that had a lot of us scratching our heads here. Attorney General Ken Paxton says members of the House General Investigating Committee are considering impeaching him again. He had no proof when he made these allegations. Why do this? What's the point of it?
It's a good question. And, you know, the General Investigating Committee will not put out an agenda like other committees too, because what they're doing is behind the scenes in terms of that. And so, you know, they're the ones who kind of brought forth the initial impeachment recommendation before. And so, you know, why Paxton is doing this right now is interesting. You know, the chair of the committee said that he's absolutely wrong, that that's not what's happening. But also another thing that's happened recently too is that, you know, there's still a federal investigation going on into allegations of corruption involving Paxton. And so, you know, a recent development is that there have been a couple of subpoenas for two more employees of the Attorney General's office. That's something that's going on too that I don't know, but that's certainly something that's got probably on Paxton's team's mind as well.
But what do you make of this?
Well, let's talk about what Ken Paxton should be doing right now. He should be intervening to have Centerpoint preserve all its records of the run-up to this. He should be preventing price gouging in Southeast Texas. He's worried about himself.
Bernadine, good point.
It's an excellent point, but that's not what Paxton is about. You know, and then my thinking is something must be coming down the pipeline for him to sort of want to put the focus on something else, that he's the victim again. So
what else could be coming down the pipeline besides the federal investigation, the federal grand jury meeting?
That's the federal investigation, and he could want to say that that the Democratic House is in with it. You know, that they're part of this, that they're instigating this. There's no telling what it is, because remember, they're excellent in messaging.
It could be something else about his trial and someone in his trial.
Yeah.
We don't know, but we do know something.
Something could be happening there. Guys, thanks so much. Ian, good to see you again as well. Thanks for watching as well. We're back next Sunday to take you inside Texas politics, and hope you can join us then. Take care.